Imagine you're sound asleep in your own bed when suddenly a piercing siren shatters the silence. You have less than 10 minutes to grab your most important possessions, wake your children, and run to a cramped metal shelter buried in your backyard. Outside, the sky over London begins to glow with searchlights as German bombers approach and the first explosions start shaking the ground beneath your feet. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't a nightmare you could wake up from. This was the reality for millions of ordinary British families every single night during what became known as the Blitz, from September 1940 to May 1941. For 8 straight months, families like the Thompsons would sleep in those metal bunkers, not knowing if their home would still be standing in the morning. Today, we're going to walk through 24 hours in the life of this real London family. Not the story of soldiers or politicians, but the story of regular people. A mother, a father, and 3 kids trying to survive one of the most terrifying periods in modern history. Because the real story of World War II isn't just about battles and strategies. It's about how ordinary human beings kept living, kept loving, and kept going when their entire world was literally exploding around them. Let's start on October 15th, 1940. The Thompson family crawls out of their Anderson shelter at dawn after another terrifying night. Margaret Thompson, a 35-year-old mother of 3, does the same thing she does every morning. She checks if their house is still there. Last night, they heard massive explosions just a few blocks away. The ground shook so hard that their youngest daughter wouldn't stop crying for hours. As they emerge into the gray morning light, they see thick black smoke rising from the docks to the east. Their house survived, but several roof tiles are blown off and more windows are shattered from the blast pressure. Down the street, their neighbor's home is just a pile of rubble. Margaret can see rescue workers already digging through the debris, hoping to find survivors. But there's no time to dwell on what happened last night. Margaret has to figure out breakfast, and that's become a complex puzzle that would challenge even the best mathematicians. You see, by 1940, almost everything edible in Britain was rationed. Each family member had a ration book filled with coupons that determined exactly what they could buy each week. For breakfast this morning, she toasts thin slices of bread, spreads them with margarine instead of butter because they have to save the real butter for special occasions, and makes tea that's been brewed from yesterday's used sea leaves because fresh tea was incredibly scarce. There are no eggs today because their egg ration ran out 3 days ago, so Margaret improvises with powdered egg, a government-issued substitute that, frankly, tastes nothing like real eggs. She mixes the yellow powder with water and a bit of powdered milk, then scrambles it in a pan. The kids complain. They miss chocolate, candy, fresh fruit, all the things they took for granted just a year ago. But Margaret, like millions of other British mothers, turns this into a lesson. She tells them that every bite they save means more food for the soldiers fighting to protect them. She makes a game of it, calling them little warriors on the home front. After breakfast, the Thompson children get ready for school. Each one straps a cardboard box around their shoulder. Inside isn't lunch or books, it's their gas mask. Every single civilian in Britain, from infants to the elderly, was required to carry a gas mask everywhere they went. The government feared Hitler might use chemical weapons like in World War I, so being caught without your mask could result in serious fines. At school, the children practiced putting on these masks during regular drills. Imagine being 7 years old and having to wear a rubber mask that smells terrible, makes breathing difficult, and fogs up your vision, all while your teacher cheerfully explains that this might save your life if poison gas starts falling from the sky. This was just normal life for British children during the war. Their school building was damaged in a bombing raid the previous week, so classes were combined and crammed into the remaining safe rooms. Many of their classmates were gone, evacuated to the countryside as part of one of the largest mass movements of children in British history. Over 3 million children were sent away from cities to live with strangers in rural areas where bombing was less likely. The Thompsons made the agonizing decision to keep their family together despite the danger. Margaret believed that staying united was worth the risk, though she second-guessed this decision every time the siren sounded. While the children are at school, Margaret begins her daily routine, which has become radically different from life before the war. She spends most of the morning standing in lines. The rationing system guaranteed everyone got a fair share, but it didn't guarantee that food was actually available. When word spread that the butcher shop 3 blocks away received a fresh delivery, women would immediately form a queue that could stretch around the corner. Margaret waits nearly 2 hours just to get half a pound of beef, her family's entire meat ration for the week. She has to visit multiple shops because each store only sells certain categories of goods, according to your registered ration coupons. This isn't just about money anymore. You could be wealthy, but if you didn't have the right coupon, you couldn't buy food. In a strange way, the war created the most equal society Britain had ever seen, because rich and poor alike stood in the same lines for the same meager portions. In the afternoon, Margaret works in their tiny backyard garden, part of a nationwide campaign called Dig for Victory. The government encouraged every family to grow their own vegetables to reduce dependence on food imports. Every available inch of soil around their Anderson shelter was planted with potatoes, cabbage, and carrots. Even the famous parks of London were transformed into agricultural plots. Growing your own food wasn't just patriotic, it was survival. As the sun begins to set, anxiety rises in the Thompson household. Every evening, Margaret performs a ritual called the blackout. Every single window and door in the house must be covered with thick curtains or wooden boards so that absolutely no light escapes. This wasn't a suggestion. It was law, strictly enforced by air raid precautions wardens who patrolled the streets every night. Why was this so critical? Because German bomber pilots used city lights to navigate and find their targets. Even a small crack of light from a cigarette or a gap in the curtains could help the enemy locate residential areas. Wardens had the authority to fine or even arrest anyone who violated blackout rules. The safety of the entire neighborhood depended on everyone's compliance. Living under complete blackout created an eerie, almost surreal atmosphere. London, one of the world's great cities, became pitch black every night. Streets that once glowed with shops and street lights were now dangerous obstacle courses. Traffic accidents skyrocketed because cars could only use heavily dimmed headlights. People stumbled into lampposts, fell into the Thames River, and collided with each other in the darkness. But it was necessary. For dinner, Margaret has to get creative with their limited ingredients. Tonight, she's making what was called Woolton pie, named after Lord Woolton, the Minister of Food. It's essentially a vegetable pie, with potatoes, carrots, turnips, and whatever else she could grow or acquire, topped with a thin pastry crust made with minimal fat. There's no meat in it, no rich gravy, no butter-laden pastry. But it fills their stomachs and provides nutrition. The British government was incredibly proactive in helping families cope with food shortages. They created cheerful cartoon characters like Dr. Carrot and Potato Pete to encourage children to eat more locally grown vegetables. The BBC radio broadcast cooking shows teaching housewives how to make appetizing meals from rationed ingredients. Recipe cards distributed by the Ministry of Food showed hundreds of creative ways to stretch every ounce of food. This government support was crucial, not just for nutrition, but for morale. The message was clear. We're all in this together, and we're going to get through it together. Around 8 in the evening, the family gathers in their living room to listen to the radio. The BBC was their lifeline to the outside world, providing news about the war, though heavily censored, and entertainment programs that offered precious moments of normalcy and laughter in the midst of chaos. But around 9 in the evening, the sound they've been dreading pierces the air. The air raid siren, a rising and falling wail that signals incoming German bombers, shatters the evening calm. Within seconds, the Thompson family moves with practiced precision. They've done this drill dozens of times. Margaret grabs the emergency bag she keeps packed with identification documents, water bottles, crackers, and blankets. Her husband Robert, who works at the docks during the day and serves in the home guard at night, helps the younger children. they run out the back door to their Anderson shelter, a corrugated metal structure that's half buried in the ground and covered with soil for protection. The Anderson shelter was ingenious in its simplicity and effectiveness. It was basically a curved steel shell that could be assembled in a backyard and partially buried. The earth covering provided additional protection from bomb fragments and debris. It wasn't comfortable. It was cold, damp, cramped, and claustrophobic, but it could save your life. Many families, including the Thompsons, slept in these shelters every single night for months because the raids came so frequently. Imagine trying to sleep on a space barely 6 feet wide with your entire family, listening to the thunder of anti-aircraft guns and the whistle of falling bombs, not knowing if the next explosion will be the one that hits your home. Inside the dark shelter, lit only by a dim oil lamp, the Thompson family huddles together. Every explosion makes the earth shake. Dirt falls from the ceiling. The younger children cry, and Margaret sings lullabies to calm them, her voice competing with the sounds of war outside. Robert, when he's not on home guard duty, tries to keep spirits up by telling jokes or playing simple word games with the kids. This is how they survived psychologically, by maintaining humanity and connection even in the most dehumanizing circumstances. That's a different kind of heroism, but it's heroism nonetheless. What's remarkable about this period is something that came to be called the Blitz spirit, a collective resilience and solidarity that emerged among British civilians. When a house was destroyed, neighbors immediately rushed to help dig through the rubble and rescue survivors. When someone lost everything, the community pooled resources to provide clothes, food, and temporary shelter. There was a sense that they were all facing this horror together, and they would support each other through it. When the all-clear siren finally sounds around 5 a.m, signaling that the German planes have left, the Thompsons emerge from their shelter, exhausted, cold, and shaking, but alive. They look toward their house and feel overwhelming relief. It's still standing, though there are new cracks in the walls and more broken windows. Looking east, they see orange flames and thick smoke rising from the docklands. Hundreds of buildings burned throughout the night. Tomorrow, Robert will return to work at those same docks that were bombed, because the work must continue. Britain depended completely on supplies arriving by ship, and those docks had to keep functioning, no matter what. Margaret will begin her routine again, standing in lines for food, tending the vegetable garden, repairing what can be repaired in the house, and preparing for another night, because there will be another night, and another after that. During the height of the Blitz, London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights. Over those 8 months, more than 40,000 British civilians were killed, and over 1 million homes were destroyed or severely damaged. But the city never surrendered. Life continued in a way that was almost defiant, as if to say that terror would not break their spirit. The Thompson family story is the story of millions of other families across Britain who endured the same terror, the same hardships, the same impossible choices. They weren't superheroes. They were ordinary people. Mothers worrying about feeding their children. Fathers working exhausted to keep infrastructure running. Kids trying to be kids despite carrying gas masks to school. When we learn about World War II in America, we often focus on the military campaigns, the strategic decisions, the political leaders. We learn about D-Day and Pearl Harbor and the Holocaust. All of those stories are crucial to understanding the war. But the war was also won by people like Margaret, who stood in line for hours to get half a pound of meat, by children who studied in bombed-out schools with gas masks at their sides, by communities that held each other up when everything seemed to be falling apart. Their resilience wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was the quiet, daily decision to keep going, to maintain humanity and connection even in the most dehumanizing circumstances. That's a different kind of heroism, but it's heroism nonetheless. In future videos, we'll explore other hidden aspects of this war, the technologies developed under pressure, the industries that transformed overnight, the long-term consequences that shape the world we live in today. Because understanding history isn't just about knowing what happened. It's about understanding how people lived through it, what they felt, what they sacrificed, and what we can learn from their experiences. If you found this perspective valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories from history. Drop a comment and let me know what other aspects of World War II you'd like to explore. There are so many stories that deserve to be heard. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.